teaching about the fruit of the Spirit. And each week we've taken pictures. And so we're going to show you the pictures today of where we've been. Now, the whole idea behind this is eventually, in October, we're going to have a harvest festival. We're going to be giving these pumpkins away. You have to be reminded, do not eat these pumpkins. You can only eat organic pumpkins because of all the stuff they put on there. Now, we got these seeds from Mike and Brenda as well, so some of them might be pumpkins and some of them might be gourds. So if your kid gets a gourd, you're welcome. So where else are you going to get a gourd? What if the church gives gourds, right? All right, so here we go. So each week we can talk about the fruit. So this was week 1, and the whole crew got together and these sprouted up, so that was kind of cool. Then week 2 started to grow a little bit. Now watch what happens in week 2. Look at that. Now watch what happens in week 3. In week 3, all of a sudden the weeds are starting to crowd in there, right? They're starting to, try to take the life away from that good fruit. Week 4, we have that starting to grow. Week 5, now we're starting to see, you might have to turn your head to the left or the right, depending on which way you're looking at the leaves. Go ahead. Week 6, are we in week 6 or week 7? We're going to find out. What do you got next, Jason? What is that thing? That might be a gourd and it might be a pumpkin. We're still not sure yet. Let's go to the next week. Here we go. Now we see all the flowers that are going here, so we have all kinds of pumpkins that are ready to go. My wife and I were up here yesterday, and as we came through, we're like, oh my goodness, we're going to have 18 million pumpkins to give. And there, if you look at that, that's a cucumber. So we have at least one cucumber. I'm just kidding. We think it's a pumpkin. So hopefully it's going to end up being a pumpkin. But down in there's our pumpkin. So let people know, because we're going to be giving these pumpkins away. We want to give these to these kiddos so that they can enjoy cutting them, drawing on them, whatever that might be for Halloween. And Halloween, it's not going away. We have to understand it's the number 2 holiday of the year as far as money spent on it. So we need to be a great example and to reach out to people and to care for people. So we'll have the Harvest Festival. We'll have it here at the church for all the kids, and we're going to have lots of pumpkins to give away. And then for the ones we don't have, we're going to play this group called Smashing Pumpkins. We're going to play their music. We're going to shoot them in catapults into the campground and watch the campers roll. See, everyone love that. Okay, no, we're just kidding. We're not going to do that. Okay. Can you get that comment? Probably not. All right, too late. So anyway, we're in the midst of the series around the fruit of the Spirit. And this week is probably going to be the toughest one. Last week we taught on patience. We thought patience is definitely going to be the most difficult of all the areas. But what we're going to find out today is that this one is the most difficult because we have treated it like it's an option. So Galatians chapter 6, Galatians chapter, let me get the reference here for you. Put it aside and didn't mark it. Galatians, here we go. Chapter 5, verse 22 says, but the fruit, notice it doesn't say the fruits, but the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. So this week we are talking about kindness. And as we grow, and this is the idea behind it, we want to grow from a spiritual maturity standpoint. So that each one of us are growing in our daily walk. Each one of us are growing as we walk with the Holy Spirit. And so this week, even though it's about kindness, we would think that this would be an easy week. But it's not. And the reason, once again, for that is because many times we treat kindness as an option. We treat kindness as something we do on occasion. We treat kindness as, oh my goodness, I recognize that I did this act of kindness, and so because of that, I must be someone that practices kindness in all I say and all I do. But the truth of it is we don't. As a dad, one of the things that we all hope to do, as a mom we hope to do, is we hope to pass things down to our kids. And there's certain things that we hope that one day they'll say. We hope that they'll realize that the words that we are telling them is because we love them, it is because we care for them. Not because we are on their back, but because we had their back. And one of the things I say to my kids all the time is kill them with kindness. Kill them with kindness. To the point now where my kids will even stop and they're like, I already know what you're going to say, Dad. I already know what you're going to say. Kill them with kindness. Kill them with kindness. When someone's yelling at you, kill them with kindness. When someone's cussing at you, kill them with kindness. When someone is completely in the wrong, kill them with kindness. God bless you. And it's a difficult thing to do because we're not in a very kind society. And because of it, we just don't take kindness with us wherever we go. And too many times when someone needs an act of kindness, because we treat it as an option, we don't share it with others. So what does God have to say about that? What does God share within His Word when it comes to being kind to one another? Because kindness isn't just a thought. Kindness isn't just a feeling. It isn't even an option. Kindness is an everyday quality that is passed on to us from God. And so the first thing we have to look at, let's look at the first verse today, is it isn't in God's character. Now this is Psalm 63, verses 3 and 4. Now, this verse says, because your love is better than life, my lips will glorify you. I will praise you as long as I live, and in your name I will lift up my hands. Almost every other version of the Bible actually reads this first part to say, because of your loving kindness. So not just about the love that you have, but that there's a kindness that sets in because of that love that you have. So there's a kindness that sets in that says there's something different about how you treat people. There's something different about how you approach people. There's something different about how you react to people when they're giving you a hard time, or they're putting you down, or they're mean to you. There's something different about it. And God shows us that within His character. So we get to see the character of God through the kindness that He has. There's a love about the kindness that we have. There's a loving kindness that takes place for each one of us. If we can go to the next verse, this is from Psalm 23, verse 6. Now, Psalm 23, most people see this as a psalm of death, but every funeral that I do, when I'm at the gravesite, or if it's at the end of a cremation memorial service, I always share from Psalm 23. Because people think that it's a psalm of death, but once again, it is a psalm of life. It has promises in here that God gives to every single one of us if we'll take hold of those promises. And in verse 6, it says this, surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life. So God is saying, listen, this is what's going to follow you. Goodness and mercy are going to follow you. This is part of who I am. Wherever you go, wherever the struggles you are, whatever it is that's going on in your life, no matter how bad you are with finances, no matter what's going on in your marriage right now that's breaking apart, no matter the past struggles that you may have had, no matter how you treat your kids, or when anger boils, whatever it might be, your anxiety, your doubt, all those things. You have to know this, that God's loving kindness means that His mercy, His grace, His peace, His patience is going to follow you. His goodness is going to follow you all the days of your life. So if you know that you're carrying that with you, and we know that God then is giving this character of kindness to us, why is it that we treat it as an option? Why is it I'll be nice to that person, but I'll completely shun this other person? Why is it that there's something inside me that says, you know what, I'll be good to those people, but I'm not going to be as good to these people? We're going to find out today that this is sadly something that for each one of us, we don't even realize it at times, but it comes out of us. And we say things that we don't mean to do or say, but at the end of the day, if we're going to show the character of kindness, we're actually showing the character of God through the things that we say. Go ahead and go to this next verse. This next verse says this. This is Luke 6, verse 35, and this is the key to what we're talking about today. This is known as the Sermon on the Plain. So we all talk about the Sermon on the Mount. There's actually a flat area, a Sermon on the Plain, where Jesus was speaking to people. And He shares a lot of the things that He shared within that Sermon on the Mount. And this is what He says in this verse. He says this, but love your enemies, do good to them, and lend to them without expecting to get anything back. So we immediately go to our enemies. And so I ask you, who is it that is your enemy? Who is your biggest enemy? It could be someone that you work with. It could be a boss that you have. It could be your spouse. It could be a child. It could be a stepchild. We all have someone that, for whatever reason, we butt heads with, we rub against wrong, whatever it might be. And when it comes to that, Jesus has shared with us, listen, you've got to take the time to love that person in such a way that loving kindness that they're not expecting. In such a way that loving kindness that is going to be a light and a reflection of me upon them. But we all jump to that word with those enemies. And we all focus on that one word. And because of that, we reserve our kindness not for those enemies, but even more so for the ones that we love. He says in this verse once again, but love your enemies, do good to them, and lend to them without expecting to get anything back. So if you are showing loving kindness, if you are killing them with kindness. They may not be kind back. You may have a soft word. You may have a kind word. You may have just what it is that they need for that time. And yet they throw it in your face, they blame you, they point the finger at you. You may be as helpful as you can be. You're doing everything that you possibly can. And they don't care because you're the person that's in the crosshairs right now. And they rip you and rip you and rip you. And you know what? They may never take responsibility for their action. They may never take responsibility for who they are. They may never take responsibility for where they're at in their life, that because of those circumstances, they're treating you that way. And you know what you and I have to do? Expect it. Because we shouldn't expect anything in return. I shouldn't be kind to you, meaning that later you're going to be kind to me. I shouldn't give to someone hoping that I'm going to get something back. I shouldn't love someone, even if they hate me, and expect them to love me back. This is how God's character works. And it's been proven since the beginning of time. There's so many people that say they love God, and yet all of their actions and everything they say and everything they do is exactly opposite of what God's Word teaches. Because they truly don't understand God's character. They truly don't understand that God is pouring this through each one of them and pouring this through us. And it's up to us to then pour that through others. We don't think about the character of God. We don't think about that in moments when we don't know people, and we certainly don't think about it in moments when we do know people, whether we love them or despise them. The verse continues, and he says this, then, here's the next thing that happens, then your reward will be great, and you will be sons of the Most High, because he is kind to the ungrateful and wicked. Jesus is saying this, then, at this point, there's a reward for you. When you expect nothing in return, your reward is coming, but you may not see it here. That's not fair, is it? Listen, I've got this customer, I've got this person I deal with, I've got this guy, I've got this personality, I have this lady, I have this coach, my kids have this teacher. There's no one that can get along with it. And you may not be able to either, but you can sure love them enough. You can show them enough loving kindness so they may see something different in you. Kill them with kindness. Because that is a trait through love and peace and joy, and through all those things that isn't an option. It's required of us. Look at this last part of this verse when it says, because he is kind to the ungrateful and wicked. How many people do you know are completely ungrateful for everything they have? They can't find anything good in life. They're constantly complaining. There's constant contention. There's constant drama. Or you get that power person that if it's not my way, I'm not happy all of a sudden. If it's not exactly how I expect it to be, someone's head's got to roll. I got to point a finger at someone. And they're just completely ungrateful for where they are in life. They're completely ungrateful for who God has brought into their life. And they can never seem to find anything positive. And God says this, I'm going to keep loving them. I'm going to give them loving kindness. My love is going to be centered around this kindness because it is a fruit of the character, a fruit of the Spirit to which I give each one of you that believe. That's pretty cool. So for all those that are ungrateful, if you're struggling right now with being ungrateful, you need to stop long enough and say this. God accepts me for who I am. God accepts my flaws. God is good with who I am. God realizes that if I will focus upon Him, that if I will turn this back to Him, that His loving kindness can conquer everything. So many times, the one that is the most ungrateful is the person that's sitting in the seat that you're sitting in. And the person who notices that they're the most ungrateful are all those that are sitting around them. We have to take responsibility. We have to take accountability for our actions, for our words, and for how we respond to circumstances. Because if we don't, how in the world is this world ever going to see anything different? And the example Jesus gave us in these words, by even with the ungrateful, He shows His mercy. So, excuse me, Ephesians 2, 8 and 9, it says it like this. It says, for grace we are saved by what? Through what? Through faith. It's not of our own. It's not of our works. It's not of anything that we do. Even if we boast about it. Man, did you see that thing I did there? Did you see that loving kindness I just showed that person? Did you see that act that I just did? Did you see the kindness that's all about me and me and me? Because our kindness, too many times, is focused on ourselves and not on the person on the other end. And that's the difference between kindness and loving kindness. And it can be with the words we say, it can be with the things that we can share, and it can just come down to those acts that we have. A couple years ago, there was a big thing that was out. It was called the Random Acts of Kindness. And everywhere you went, you saw how people randomly just chose to be kind. And the sad thing for me is that it was random. Because they would think all day, and how can I be kind to that person? How is it that I can choose to be kind? You know what? I'm going to plan today, and I'm going to come up with this strategy. And I'm going to scheme this all together. And maybe I'll get a buddy, and maybe I'll get someone else, and maybe I'll do whatever it might be. And then maybe we'll film it, and we'll take some money to the homeless, or we'll drop off some coats here, and then I'll post it on social media, and everyone can see my random act of kindness. And then I can hold on to that random act of kindness and see how many likes I get, see how many approvals I get, see if it got shared on this social networking platform, and if it got shared over here, and oh wait, that person liked it, but why aren't they following me? And it turns into all these things around the social networking, all because of a random act of kindness. What God is saying is that the acts of kindness shouldn't be random. They shouldn't be things that we do just because. They shouldn't be things that we do here and there. A few years back, there was a thing called "What Would Jesus Do?" It was a bracelet, and so you could ask yourself, whenever you're choosing to do something kind, what would Jesus do? And people would ask that question. They'd wear the bracelet. They would walk around. And the way that happened was those bracelets got tattered, and they got thrown away, or you know what? I'm not going enough with the Jesus stuff. Or people are throwing this in my face, going, "Hey, it doesn't say what would Jesus do?" and you're yelling at me. It doesn't say what would Jesus do, and you're putting me down. It doesn't say what would Jesus do, and you're not even here for me. And so people would take these bracelets off, and just like the random acts of kindness, they would end up ending. Excuse me. Just like these random acts of kindness, they weren't being shared. And so many times, what would Jesus do just fell by the wayside. And so if you were to ask yourself the question, in this situation, what would Jesus do? I think a better question to ask is, what would Jesus not do? What would Jesus not do for that homeless person? What would Jesus not do for your spouse that needs to just know that you care? Needs to just see an act that says, "Hey, I'm here to help you." What would Jesus not do when someone needed to hear a kind word? What would Jesus not do when it came to showing His loving kindness combined together to share His Spirit with others? Because every time, and think about this for a second, I hope you're listening. Every time you're angry, every time you put someone down, every time you're rude, every time you have to have your way, every single time that you do that, you're not only showing your spirit, but you're showing the lack of God's Spirit. And when that happens, guess what that person is going to rest on? They can't see God through you. And they can't see God through me because I am not choosing to live in such a way that is different from what this entire world has to offer. Are we representing God how we should? What would Jesus do? What would Jesus do in your marriage? What would Jesus do as you're raising kids? What would Jesus do as a grandparent? What would Jesus do with friends? What would Jesus do with a total stranger? Well, what would Jesus not do? I was reading this story about this lady, and this was over in Britain. This is not a true story. It was just kind of one of the parable things that was shared. And a lady was pouring down rain one night. It got really, really bad. There was a knock on her door. She opened up the door. There was this tall lady there. She just was covered. She was drenched completely. And the lady asked her, "Do you happen to have an umbrella?" And she's like, "Well, yes." She's like, "Could I please use it?" So she went to the back, and she actually had two umbrellas. She had one that was brand new that she just got. Big umbrella, would definitely protect anybody from the storm. She also had a second umbrella. And that second umbrella was tattered, it was worn, and it worked for the most part, but wasn't really that good. So she had the choices to which umbrella to give. So she took the tattered umbrella and brought it to the lady. She's like, "I'm not going to give this back anyway." And she gave it to the lady. The lady thanked her, went on her way. A few days later, there was a knock at the door. And when she opened the door, there was one of the royal guard. and handed her back the umbrella and said, the Queen of England wanted to thank you for this umbrella that you gave her because she needed it. In a time of need, you took care of her. The thanks from the Queen, and hands it to her. To which she said, well, if I had known it was the Queen, I'd have given her my best umbrella. So many times, that's how we are in society. We treat people based on their status level. We treat people based on their title. We treat people based on what it is that we may get from them. See, God said, my loving kindness goes to the ungrateful, and my mercy goes to the ungrateful, goes to everyone. It's for all of us, because we all get there at times. And we struggle with it. We struggle sometimes with our spouses. They don't say the right things. They don't do the right things. We struggle sometimes with our kids. They're not perfect. We struggle sometimes with our schools. Oh my goodness, they're not teaching the right things. We struggle sometimes with a coach. We struggle sometimes. We struggle. But loving kindness says, I will take the initiative. I will take the step. And I will be kind. And not only will I be kind, but I will show loving kindness to that person. Because Jesus would show loving kindness to me. See, if that person at the end of the on-ramp, if that was Jesus, you'd stop. If that difficult personality that you can never get along with, if that was Jesus, you would make the attempt. If that teacher or that coach or that boss or that whoever that person might be was so out of control, but that was Jesus, you would stop long enough to say, let's try to talk this through. And the reason we know that is because that's what Jesus would do for them. He would show his loving kindness. I was reading a story this week, and I'm going to read the whole thing to you just because I thought it was such a great story. It says, Judy Kruger is a 70-year-old widow. And Terry Pluto wrote this, by the way. Everyone knows him for his sports, but he's a great guy of faith. Judy Kruger is a 70-year-old widow whose husband died about 15 years ago. She was on a flight from Salt Lake City to Cleveland. Across the aisle from me was a very large man, she emailed. The man was talking to someone else, and it was apparent the man played for the Cleveland Browns. When they landed in Cleveland, several people asked the man, did you hear Josh Gordon isn't coming to training camp? The man had not heard the news. Kruger wanted to get his autograph for her 11-year-old grandson. She asked him to sign something. Let's do something better, he said. Let's take a photo. They did just that. He also signed a card. That's when I learned his name was Nate Orchard, she wrote. Orchard is a backup defensive lineman. He was drafted out of Utah in 2015. We all began to walk together to baggage claim, she wrote. I was traveling alone, and Nate said, let me carry your bag. Kruger refused. She didn't want to impose, but he insisted, she wrote. He carried my pink flowered carry-on bag through the airport. Other fans approached him, and he was very nice and very pleasant. He answered everyone's questions, including mine. Kruger said they approached the escalators going down to the baggage claim area. God bless you. She doesn't like escalators, and said she'd take the bag and ride down the elevator. No way, said Orchard. I've got you. They waited for the bags together. Orchard came out first. He insisted on also waiting for her bags. Then he made sure my daughter was outside to pick me up, she wrote. Kruger was overwhelmed by Orchard's kindness. In the 15 years since my husband had died, no one, not one, no one has ever offered to help me with a bag, she wrote. I have struggled through a lot of airports, and no one has ever even noticed or offered to help. Nate Orchard had no cameras watching. He had no reason to be kind to an almost 70-year-old woman. But he took the time to be helpful, patient, and kind. He asked me about my family and answered my questions about this. I told him my grandkids called me Jammer. He said, tell them they have the greatest jammer in the world. Then Kruger concluded, Nate Orchard gives me faith that there are good guys in the NFL and in the world. He is a role model for my grandsons and kids all over. To me, he is a man that practiced loving kindness. And so, for some of you right now, you're sitting there, and this is what you're saying. That's a guy I like. That's a guy I could follow. That's a guy I might even go home and find what number he is, Even though they don't sell backup defensive linemen's jerseys in the stores. Just so I can watch for him, and if he's on the field, I can root for him. But then others of you are sitting there right now going, and this is what you're saying, if I were famous like that, if I had that role, if I were the professional athlete, if I were the rock star or the actor, if I, then I would do the same thing. And because of that, too many times we miss out on the loving kindness that God pours through us, that we can pour through others, because we're waiting for that next thing to happen, or hoping that when I get this platform. Loving kindness doesn't come with a platform. Loving kindness doesn't come with a role. Loving kindness doesn't come with a title. God himself didn't say, hey, I'm God, and because I'm God, I'm going to be loving and kind. God said to all the ungrateful, to all those who are grateful, to everyone, I am going to show my mercy and loving kindness. And it's a choice. It's a choice that each one of us make. If you go to the next verse for me, please. Matthew 25:40 says, the king will reply, truly I tell you, whatever you did for one of the least of these brothers and sisters of mine, you did for me. Nate Orchard did this for a 70-year-old widow who for 15 years, no one had ever stopped to be kind. No one. If you go to this last verse for me, please, Jason. And here's what it comes down to. We shared this at the beginning of the Fruit of the Spirit series. Be kind. There's an act behind it. You are choosing to do this. Be kind and compassionate, forgiving each other just in Christ God forgave you. You have to remind yourself, and I have to remind myself, that every single time I choose loving kindness in a text message, in an email, in a call, in a whatever it might be, in someone I've never met, in someone I've known forever. Every single time I choose that, it's because what God chose to give me, His loving kindness. So it's up to me to choose to be kind. It's up to me to choose to be loving and kind. It's up to me to choose to be loving and kind and compassionate. So here's a few different ways that you can do that. First thing is, in all of our conversations with our family and friends. Now, if I were to ask you right now, I'm not going to do a show of hands, but sometimes the ones that drive us the craziest are the ones that we grew up with. The ones that are brothers and sisters, the ones that are mom and dad. And you're like, was I raised in the same house? Was I raised by the same parents? Is there any way we could possibly be related? Is this really a thing? But we have to choose to be, with our conversation with our friends and our family, it's got to start there. Because that is usually where the ungrateful side kicks in the most. Because we spend the most time with them. But at the end of the day, at the end of the week, at the end of a lifetime, the people that are going to be there are those same friends and family. Next thing, how about this? This is going to be tough for some of you. In every online post and comment, if it's not going to be kind, and if it's not going to show compassion, don't write it. Unless it's a really funny joke. Then you can do it. I'm just kidding, that's not biblical. I say that because there's some people that I mess with and I tell them, you know mess with you, right? And they go, yeah, we know, we're just joking around. But some people may not be able to see that. So you have to know who it is that you're talking with and sharing with. But you still want to be kind and compassionate in every online discussion. Next thing. This is a tough one. In traffic. We laugh about it. I've brought this up a couple times, but some people in traffic are just not kind. They're not showing any loving kindness. And if you are waving other than this, you probably should be waving. And if you're yelling with your windows up, they can't hear you anyway. So we want to be kind. I've gone up to people that have been mad while I'm driving, and I stop next to them and I go, I love you. And they only point one finger back at me, and it's not this finger. Kill them with kindness. Kill them with kindness. Kill them with loving kindness. When doing business, this is a difficult one at times. Because too many times businesses put the business ahead of your ministry, the business ahead of ministry, the business ahead of your walk, the business. And it doesn't matter what it is, whether it's business, finances, how we treat people, all things. Too many times we don't practice loving kindness because we put that ahead of God. And then next thing, ready for this? Here's the bottom line. To those who need your help. We practice loving kindness. Now, as I went through this, I can guarantee you that you took a look at yourself and said, yeah, that's an area I need to work on. Yeah, that's an area I struggle with. Yeah, that's an area. God is willing and able to help you through this. But I think something else may have happened to you as well. Someone came into your mind, in your life, that whenever you see them, whenever you talk to them, they kill you with kindness. Go talk to that person. Go have a discussion with that person. And here's what you're going to find. They're not perfect. They don't do it perfectly every time. They struggled in the past. This is something they've worked on for years and years. You just happen to see more of the finished product, or when they're around you, they show you that kindness. But they're going to share with you their flaws and how they struggle with it. But they're also going to share with you, because you can ask them, how is it that I get better at this? And we do it every single moment, one moment at a time, with every person and every situation that God brings us, not expecting anything in return. See, when God sent His Son Jesus to die on the cross, He doesn't force you to believe. He doesn't force you to trust. He doesn't force you to pray. He doesn't force you to give devotions. He doesn't force you to bring an offering. He doesn't force you in any of those things. God's a gentleman. He's not going to force Himself upon you. But what He is going to do is He's going to show you that loving kindness. And He's going to share that with you so that you can share it with others. When you get past patience, you take that step of loving kindness, you're starting to grow spiritually. You're starting to grow more and more. And sooner or later, that fruit is going to take place. It's going to sprout. It's going to start to ripen. And when we do these things, somewhere down the road, I guarantee you this will happen. Someone's going to come to you and go, how is it you're so kind all the time? You're going to be like, what? Are you talking to me? You're going to look around and go, what are you talking? This guy right here? How is it that you deal with people that way? How is it that you don't yell at them? How is it you didn't throat punch that guy? How is it you just didn't grab them up and say, enough's enough? How? Why is it that you always show that loving kindness? And you can point way back to when God planted that seed. Day after day, moment after moment, week after week, year after year, you decided to start living His way, and He grew that spirit within you. So today, would you practice by killing others with kindness? And not just kindness, but killing others with loving kindness. And as you do, you watch that fruit grow. And will continue to grow spiritually. And we get to be an example of God before others. Wherever you sit, if you just bow your head and close your eyes, one of the mic's going to come up. Be kind and compassionate to one another, forgiving each other just as in Christ God forgave you. There are examples everywhere in our lives. Each one of us has an opportunity to care for someone every day. Whether it's someone that's close to us or someone that we're just about to meet. Lord, would you help each one of us to understand that at this time, it's not what would you do, it's what you wouldn't do to care for them. Lord, help us to be kind in our words. Help us to take a step, not a random step, but Lord, a loving step of kindness to care for all of those that you bring into our path and into our lives. Lord, help us to seek you, and even when we're not perfect at it, to step back long enough to say, this is how I can handle this better, according to your word. Lord, help us to be grateful, help us to be kind, help us to be compassionate. We love you. In your name we pray. Amen. Would you all please stand?